I don't trust you anymore. Leave before I say something I'll regret." The words exploded through the apartment with such force that even the rain pounding against the windows seemed to fall silent. Felix stood at the entrance, his trembling hand gripping the doorknob so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. His breathing came in uneven waves, his golden brown eyes burning with hurt instead of anger. Hurt always cut deeper. Bangchan stared back without moving. His lips parted as if he wanted to explain, but every sentence died before it could become sound. He had imagined this confrontation countless times over the past week, yet none of those imagined endings had prepared him for the look in Felix's eyes. It was not hatred. Hatred could eventually fade. This was disappointment. And disappointment left scars that lasted far longer. Another flash of lightning illuminated the room for a heartbeat. The framed photographs on the shelves briefly shone before darkness swallowed them again. Most of those photos showed laughter, birthdays, road trips, late-night meals, quiet victories, ordinary moments that had once seemed impossible to lose. Now they felt like relics from another lifetime. "Felix." "No." Younger man raised a shaking hand. "Say my name." Silence settled between them. The only sounds were the storm outside and the slow ticking of the old wall clock. Hyunjin rushed up the apartment stairs 2 at a time, soaked from the rain. His chest burned from running. Ever since receiving Felix's short message telling him not to come, he had sensed something was terribly wrong. He reached the hallway just as another crash of thunder echoed across the city. The apartment door stood half open. Inside, Bangchan remained frozen. Outside, Felix refused to meet anyone's eyes. "What's happening?" Hyunjin asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Neither of them answered. Hyunjin looked from one face to the other. He immediately noticed something unusual. Bangchan's right hand was scraped as though he had fallen. Felix's eyes were swollen. Someone had already been crying. "What happened?" Hyunjin repeated. Felix finally spoke. "I asked him to leave." Hyunjin frowned. "I don't know who he is anymore." Those words struck harder than thunder. Bangchan lowered his head. He accepted every accusation without defending himself. That frightened Hyunjin more than shouting ever could. For years, Bangchan had always protected everyone else before himself. Whenever misunderstandings appeared, he explained patiently until every wound began healing. Tonight, he simply stood there defeated. Hyunjin stepped closer. "Chan," still no answer. "Tell me what's going on." Bangchan finally looked up. His tired smile barely existed. "If Felix wants me gone, then maybe that's what I deserve." Hyunjin immediately replied. Felix's expression tightened. "You still don't understand." His voice cracked despite his efforts to remain composed. "I believed every promise you made." His eyes slowly drifted toward Bangchan. "When everyone doubted you, I defended you." His breathing became unsteady. "When everyone questioned your decisions, I stayed." He laughed quietly. It was a painful sound. "And today I found out you've been hiding the truth." Bangchan closed his eyes. "I wanted to tell you." "When?" Felix asked. After everything was already too late. Rainwater dripped from Hyunjin's coat onto the wooden floor. He had never seen Felix like this. Usually Felix expressed disappointment softly. He rarely raised his voice. Tonight, every sentence carried months of bottled-up pain. Hyunjin slowly realized this argument had not started tonight. It had been growing quietly beneath ordinary conversations, polite smiles, and carefully avoided questions. He suddenly remembered several strange moments from the past few weeks. Bangchan disappearing for hours, late-night phone calls that ended the moment someone entered the room. The exhausted expressions, the forced smiles, the unanswered messages. At the time, everyone assumed work was simply becoming more demanding. Now those memories formed a completely different picture. Hyunjin's heartbeat quickened. "What truth?" he whispered. Neither of them answered immediately. Felix looked toward the window. "I trusted him with something important." His voice became softer. "He promised he'd never keep secrets from me." He swallowed hard. "But every promise has a breaking point." Bangchan slowly reached into his pocket. He pulled out a small silver keychain. It was scratched around the edges. Felix recognized it instantly. Years ago, they had bought matching keychains from a tiny street market after joking that losing one would mean buying another together someday. Bangchan carefully placed it on the nearby table. "I kept this because I never wanted to lose our friendship." Felix stared at it, his eyes filled with tears despite himself. "Then why did you lose my trust?" Bangchan couldn't answer, not because he didn't know, because every explanation sounded like another excuse. Hyunjin suddenly felt the room becoming smaller. The silence was suffocating. He looked at Bangchan, then at Felix. He desperately wanted to fix everything. He always believed words could heal broken friendships. Tonight, words seemed powerless. Felix slowly stepped backward. "I can't keep pretending nothing happened." He opened the door wider. "You should go." Bangchan nodded almost imperceptibly. Without another word, he walked toward the hallway. Each step echoed across the apartment. Each step sounded like another memory slipping away. When he finally crossed the doorway, Hyunjin instinctively reached for his arm. "Don't leave like this." Bangchan offered only a faint smile. "Take care of him." Before Hyunjin could respond, Bangchan gently freed himself and continued walking down the corridor. The elevator doors closed. The hallway became painfully quiet. Hyunjin turned back toward Felix. He wanted to ask another question. Instead, he saw Felix slowly slide down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, his shoulders trembling. The strength he had shown moments earlier disappeared completely. Seeing Felix break apart so suddenly overwhelmed Hyunjin. He rushed toward him. Before he could reach him, however, the weight of everything he had witnessed crashed over him all at once. His knees gave out beneath him. He collapsed at the apartment doorway, unable to hold himself upright any longer. The cold rain drifted inside through the open door, mixing with silent tears as the storm outside continued without mercy. While inside the apartment, 3 hearts carried wounds that no one yet knew how to heal. Felix did not move. The cold rain crept across the hardwood floor, soaking the edge of his sleeve, yet he barely noticed. His gaze remained fixed on the open doorway where Bangchan had disappeared only moments ago. The hallway beyond was empty now, washed in pale yellow light that felt strangely lifeless. Hyunjin slowly pushed himself upright. One hand pressed against the floor to steady his trembling body. His breathing remained uneven. Felix, no answer. The silence between them was heavier than any argument. Hyunjin cautiously stepped inside and closed the apartment door. The sharp click of the lock echoed through the room, sounding almost final. He knelt beside Felix but kept a respectful distance. "Never looked at him like that before." Felix lowered his head. "I know." His voice was almost inaudible. "I hated every second of it." Hyunjin studied his friend's face. The anger that had filled Felix's eyes was gone, leaving only exhaustion. "You still care about him." Felix let out a bitter laugh. "That's exactly why this hurts." Apartment smelled faintly of coffee that had gone cold hours earlier. A mug still sat on the kitchen counter beside an untouched plate of food. Hyunjin noticed something else: 3 plates, 3 cups. Felix had expected them to eat together tonight. Whatever had happened must have begun after Bangchan arrived. "What did he hide from you?" Hyunjin asked gently. Felix stared at the floor for several seconds before answering. "For months, someone has been sending anonymous messages." Hyunjin frowned. "What kind of messages?" "They knew things only people close to me could know." His fingers tightened around the sleeve of his sweater. "They knew where I went after practice. They knew conversations that happened inside this apartment. They even knew about my family." Hyunjin felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. "You think Bangchan told someone?" "I didn't." Felix hesitated. "I didn't want to believe it." He stood slowly and walked toward the coffee table. From beneath a stack of magazines, he picked up several folded sheets of paper. "I found these." Hyunjin unfolded the first page. It contained screenshots of messages. At first glance they seemed ordinary, then he noticed the details. The sender accurately described places Felix had visited before he had posted anything online. Another message predicted where he would be the following day. Another mentioned a private conversation that had taken place weeks earlier. Hyunjin's heartbeat quickened. "Who sent these?" "There isn't a name." "Bangchan." Felix closed his eyes. "I saw him talking to someone." "Who?" "I don't know." Stopped the moment he noticed me. Hyunjin remained silent. That alone wasn't proof. But together with everything else, it was enough to plant doubt. Felix walked toward the window. "I confronted him tonight." His reflection blurred against the rain-streaked glass. "I asked him to explain." "And he said he couldn't." Hyunjin looked up. "He actually said that." Felix nodded. "He kept saying, 'I can't tell you yet.'" Long silence followed. Hyunjin knew Bangchan. If he refused to explain something, it was usually because he was protecting someone else, but this time. Silence had destroyed the trust Felix treasured most. Meanwhile, several blocks away, Bangchan wandered through rain-soaked streets without caring where he was going. Cars splashed water onto the sidewalks. Neon lights reflected across the wet pavement. His phone vibrated inside his pocket. Unknown number. He stared at the screen before answering. "I told you not to contact me." A calm voice answered. "You failed." "I know. They know you're hiding something." Bangchan stopped walking. His expression hardened. "Leave them out of this. No longer get to make demands." Line disconnected. Bangchan slowly lowered the phone. For the first time that evening, fear appeared in his eyes, not fear for himself, fear for Felix. Back at the apartment, Hyunjin quietly cleaned the spilled coffee from the floor while Felix remained standing by the window. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. Finally, Hyunjin broke the silence. "I don't think he betrayed you." Felix didn't turn around. "I want to believe that. Trust isn't something I can force back into my heart." His voice cracked. "Spent days trying." Hyunjin walked over and stood beside him. Outside, the storm had begun to weaken. "Known Bangchan for years," Hyunjin said softly. He carries burdens alone because he thinks protecting people means suffering in silence. Felix looked at him. And what if this time his silence hurts everyone instead? Hyunjin had no answer because deep inside, he was beginning to wonder the same thing. Across the city, Bangchan finally reached a quiet riverside park. He sat alone on a damp wooden bench and removed a worn envelope from inside his jacket. Inside were several photographs. One showed Felix smiling during a summer picnic. Another showed the three of them laughing together after getting caught in unexpected rain months earlier. The final photograph was different. It had been taken from far away. Felix was in the picture. He had never posed for it. Someone had secretly photographed him without his knowledge. Bangchan stared at that photograph with visible anguish. "I was too late," he whispered into the empty night. He folded the photographs carefully and slipped them back into the envelope as distant thunder rolled one last time across the dark sky. Somewhere beyond the river, a faint silhouette stood watching from beneath a black umbrella before quietly disappearing into the darkness. Morning arrived beneath a sky still heavy with grey clouds, but the storm inside Felix's apartment had not passed. The sunlight that filtered through the curtains felt cold and colourless. Felix had barely slept. He remained on the couch, wrapped in a blanket he never remembered pulling over himself. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard his own voice repeating the same sentence. "I don't trust you anymore." Those words refused to leave him. Hunjin emerged quietly from the kitchen carrying 2 mugs of warm tea. He placed one on the table in front of Felix. "You should drink something." Felix looked at the steam rising from the mug but made no effort to touch it. "You sleep," Hunjin gave a faint smile. Really, neither of them had. The apartment, once filled with music and laughter, felt unfamiliar. Even the ticking clock seemed louder than before. After several minutes of silence, Felix finally spoke. "Do you think I made a mistake?" Hyunjin thought carefully before answering. "I think you were hurt." "That's not the same answer," Hyunjin admitted. "It isn't." Felix looked down at his hands. "I wanted him to deny everything." His voice was quiet, almost fragile. "I wanted him to argue with me. I wanted him to tell me I was wrong." Hyunjin sighed, but he stayed silent. Felix nodded, and that silence hurt more than any lie. Across the city, Bangchan stood outside a small storage building on the edge of an industrial district. He glanced around before unlocking the rusted metal door. Inside, shelves were stacked with dusty boxes and forgotten equipment. He walked directly toward an old filing cabinet hidden beneath a faded tarp. From the bottom drawer, he removed a thick folder marked only with a single handwritten letter. His fingers hesitated before opening it. Inside were copies of anonymous letters, printed emails, photographs, and handwritten notes. Every page centered on one person, Felix. Bangchan closed his eyes. "I should have told you sooner." His phone vibrated again, another message. "You have one last chance. Stay quiet, or everyone learns the truth." His jaw tightened. He deleted the message immediately. Back at the apartment, Hyunjin began organizing the scattered papers Felix had collected. One envelope slipped from beneath the sofa. "I don't remember seeing this." Felix looked up. Neither of them had noticed it before. The envelope had no sender's name, only Felix's name written neatly across the front. Hyunjin carefully opened it. Inside was a single photograph. His expression changed instantly. Felix stood. "What is it?" Without speaking, Hyunjin handed him the picture. Felix stared. It showed Bangchan talking with a man wearing a dark coat outside an unfamiliar building. The image itself wasn't strange. What caught Felix's attention was the object being exchanged between them. A thick envelope, money, documents. The photograph offered no answers, only more questions. There was another item inside the envelope, a handwritten note. "Trust can be bought, loyalty can be borrowed. But betrayal always arrives quietly." Felix read it twice, his stomach tightened. "This wasn't here before." Hyunjin nodded slowly. "Someone wanted us to find it." They searched the envelope again, nothing else, no fingerprints, no address, no explanation, only uncertainty. That afternoon, Bangchan sat alone in a quiet cafe, untouched coffee growing cold before him. He wasn't waiting for anyone, at least that's what he wanted to believe. A chair scraped across the floor. Someone sat opposite him. "You ignored my warnings." Bangchan didn't look up. "I won't involve them." "You already have." Stranger slid a sealed envelope across the table. Bangchan stared at it. "I said I was done." "You don't decide when this ends." Stranger stood. Before leaving, only one sentence remained behind. "If Felix keeps looking, he'll discover things that were never meant for him." Bangchan remained frozen long after the cafe door closed. Evening settled over the city once more. Felix stepped onto the apartment balcony, hoping the cool air would quiet his thoughts. Instead, he noticed something unusual. Across the street, parked beneath a flickering street lamp, sat a black sedan. Its engine was off, its windows were dark. It had been there yesterday. And the day before. Felix narrowed his eyes. A figure inside the driver's seat remained perfectly still. watching. The moment Felix reached for his phone, the sedan's headlights suddenly came alive. The engine started. Without haste, the vehicle pulled away from the curb and disappeared into the growing darkness, leaving Felix standing motionless on the balcony with the uneasy realization that someone else had been observing them long before trust between friends had begun to fall apart.
The following morning, the city looked deceptively peaceful. A soft mist drifted between the buildings, muting the usual sounds of traffic. For the first time in days, there was no rain. Yet the calm outside only made the tension inside Felix's apartment feel more suffocating. Felix stood on the balcony, replaying the image of the black sedan disappearing into the darkness. "It wasn't my imagination," he murmured. Hyunjin joined him, holding his phone. "I checked the security camera from the convenience store across the street." Felix turned immediately. "You found something?" Hyunjin nodded, his expression serious. "Car was there for almost 3 hours." Felix's heartbeat quickened. "Can you see the driver?" Hyunjin shook his head. "Windows are too dark." For several moments, neither of them spoke. Whoever had been watching them had been patient. And careful across town, Bangchan unlocked the door to his apartment. The room was exactly as he had left it, yet something felt wrong. A picture frame near the bookshelf had been moved, only a few centimeters. Most people would never have noticed. Bangchan did, his breathing slowed. Someone had entered while he was away. He quietly walked through every room. Nothing appeared to be missing. Then he reached his desk. The drawer containing the folder marked F was slightly open. His face paled. He pulled the drawer completely open. The folder was still there, but one photograph was missing. Only one, the candid picture of Felix taken from a distance. Bangchan closed the drawer carefully. "They've already been here." Later that afternoon, Hyunjin convinced Felix to leave the apartment for a while. "Barely eaten. I'm not hungry." "I know. Staying here won't help." Reluctantly, Felix agreed. They walked through a quiet riverside park where children chased pigeons and elderly couples strolled beneath rows of trees. The ordinary scene felt strangely distant from everything they had been living through. For the first time in days, Felix managed a faint smile as a small golden retriever ran past, enthusiastically chasing a tennis ball. "It reminds me of Dory," Hyunjin said with a gentle laugh. Felix smiled a little wider. "For a second, I forgot everything." "Maybe that's okay." Before Felix could answer, his phone vibrated, an unknown number. He hesitated before opening the message. There was no text, only an image. His smile disappeared instantly. It was a recent photograph. Someone had taken it only minutes earlier. The picture showed Felix and Hyunjin standing together in the park, hidden among the trees, watched. Hyunjin noticed the change in Felix's face. "What happened?" Without speaking, Felix handed him the phone. Hyunjin's expression hardened. "Following us." A second message arrived almost immediately. "Stop searching." Nothing else. No signature, no explanation. At the same time, Bangchan sat inside his car outside a small police station. His hand rested on the steering wheel, unmoving. He had driven there 3 separate times over the past week. Each time, he lost the courage to go inside. If he reported everything now, people he cared about might become targets. If he remained silent, Felix would continue believing the worst about him. Neither choice felt right. He leaned back and closed his eyes. "I'm running out of time." That evening, Felix and Hyunjin returned home. As they entered the apartment building, the elderly caretaker called out to them. "Felix," he turned. "This package arrived while you were out." The box was small and wrapped in plain brown paper. No return address. Felix carried it upstairs without speaking. Hyunjin carefully examined every side before opening it. Inside was a small wooden music box. Felix frowned. "Seen this before." He slowly lifted the lid. A gentle melody filled the room, one he recognized immediately. Years ago, Bangchan had given him a nearly identical music box as a birthday gift, after joking that the melody would always help them find their way back to each other whenever life became difficult. This one looked almost the same. Almost. Hyunjin picked it up. "Wait." He turned it over. Someone had carved tiny words into the bottom. "Don't believe everything you see." Felix stared at the message in stunned silence. He wasn't sure whether it was a warning or an apology. The melody from the music box lingered long after it stopped playing. Felix kept turning the small wooden box over in his hands, tracing the carved words with his thumb. "Don't believe everything you see." The message felt painfully familiar. Bangchan used to say something similar whenever misunderstandings arose. "Truth isn't always the first thing we see." Felix shut the lid with a quiet click. "I don't know what to believe anymore." Hyunjin sat across from him. Then don't decide yet. Felix looked up. If waiting only makes things worse, Hyunjin answered honestly. And what if deciding too soon already has? The question lingered between them. Neither of them had an answer elsewhere. Bangchan parked outside a modest brick house on the outskirts of the city. The porch light was already on. An elderly woman opened the door before he could knock. "You look exhausted," she said gently. Bangchan managed a faint smile. "Been better." She invited him inside without another question. The house smelled of warm tea and freshly baked bread. It reminded Bangchan of quieter days before secrets had become part of his daily life. "You haven't told Felix yet, have you?" she asked. Bangchan lowered his gaze. "No, he thinks you betrayed him." Woman sighed. "Always believed carrying every burden alone protects the people you love." She placed a cup of tea in front of him. But sometimes silence becomes its own kind of wound. Bangchan stared into the steaming cup. "I know." His voice was barely audible. "Just don't know how to tell him without putting him in danger." At the apartment, Hyunjin examined the music box more closely. "There has to be something we're missing." He gently pressed against one of the wooden panels. Nothing happened. He tried another. A faint click echoed inside the box. Felix leaned forward. "What was that?" Hyunjin carefully lifted the velvet lining beneath the tiny metal comb. Hidden underneath was a folded piece of paper. Felix unfolded it with trembling fingers. There was no letter, only a hand-drawn map, 3 streets, a small riverside warehouse, and a time written neatly in black ink, 9:00 p.m. No name, no explanation. Hyunjin frowned. "This could be a trap." Felix nodded. "I know. It could also be the first real answer we've had." The clock reached 8:30. The city had grown quiet as darkness settled over the river. Felix zipped up his jacket while Hyunjin checked his phone one last time. "If anything feels wrong," Hyunjin said, "we leave immediately." Felix agreed. Neither of them noticed the figure standing across the street, watching from beneath the shadow of a bus stop. The moment they drove away, the figure calmly made a phone call. "They're on their way." The call ended. The warehouse district was almost deserted. Old shipping containers lined the road like silent giants. A cold breeze carried the scent of rust and river water. Felix checked the map again. "This is the place." Warehouse stood at the very end of the pier. Its windows were dark. Its large metal doors were slightly open. Hyunjin switched on the flashlight on his phone. "Stay close." Their footsteps echoed across the concrete floor. Dust floated through the narrow beams of light. Broken wooden crates were scattered everywhere. Then Felix noticed something. "Hyunjin." He pointed toward the center of the warehouse. A single chair. On it rested a familiar black hoodie. Bangchan's. Felix approached cautiously. Folded neatly on top of the hoodie was another envelope. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. Inside were several printed photographs. The first showed Bangchan meeting the mysterious man in the dark coat. The second showed someone secretly watching Felix's apartment. The third made Felix stop, breathing for a moment. It showed Bangchan standing between the unknown man and Felix, not as allies, as if he were blocking the stranger's path. On the back of the photograph, only one sentence had been written in hurried handwriting. "He wasn't hiding the truth from you. He was hiding you from the truth." Felix's hands began to shake. For the first time since that terrible night, doubt crept into his certainty. Had he misunderstood everything? Hyunjin slowly looked around the warehouse. "We're not alone." A faint sound echoed from somewhere deeper inside the building, not footsteps. A slow, deliberate clap once, twice, then silence. The slow clapping stopped as abruptly as it had begun. The warehouse fell silent again. Felix instinctively stepped closer to Hyunjin, the envelope still clutched tightly in his hand. The beam from Hyunjin's flashlight swept across the rows of abandoned crates, revealing only drifting dust and rusted metal. "Who's there?" Hyunjin called. His voice echoed through the vast building. No reply came, only the distant sound of water striking the wooden pillars beneath the pier. Felix's heartbeat thundered in his ears. "Did you hear where it came from?" Hyunjin slowly shook his head. It echoed too much. They moved deeper into the warehouse, careful with every step. Broken glass crunched beneath their shoes. The air smelled of damp wood, salt water, and old machinery that had long since stopped working. Near the back wall, Felix noticed something reflecting the flashlight. A phone. Its screen was still glowing. Someone had left it there only moments earlier. Hyunjin picked it up cautiously. "It's unlocked." On the screen was a single video file, no title, no sender. Felix hesitated before pressing play. The recording began with shaky footage of a narrow alley several nights earlier. The camera zoomed in. Bangchan appeared. He was speaking to the man in the dark coat. There was no sound for the first few seconds, only distorted static, then the audio cleared. "You promised," Bangchan said firmly. The stranger replied, "I promised nothing. You said you'd leave Felix out of this." "Changed my mind." Bangchan took one step forward. "If you go near him again, you'll have to go through me." Video ended abruptly. Neither Felix nor Hyunjin spoke. Felix replayed the final sentence in his mind again and again. "Have to go through me." His hands trembled. Why? Why didn't he show me this? Hyunjin looked at him quietly. Maybe because whoever recorded this wanted him to stay silent. Before Felix could answer, another sound echoed through the warehouse. This time it was the squeal of metal. One of the side doors slowly swung open. A cold wind rushed inside. Standing in the doorway was a hooded figure. Their face was hidden beneath the shadow of the hood. They raised one hand, not in greeting, but to toss a small object across the floor. It slid to a stop at Felix's feet. A silver keychain. Felix froze. It matched the one Bangchan had left behind in the apartment, except this one was broken cleanly in half. The hooded figure spoke in a calm, emotionless voice. "Trust breaks more easily than metal." Before either of them could move, the figure turned and disappeared into the darkness outside. "Wait!" Hyunjin shouted. He and Felix rushed after the stranger. They burst through the warehouse door into the cold night air. The pier stretched out in both directions, empty. No footsteps. No running figure. Only the gentle movement of the river beneath the moonlight. It was as if the stranger had vanished. Hyunjin looked down. There. Fresh tire tracks cut through the damp gravel near the entrance. Someone had left by car only seconds earlier. Felix stared at the broken keychain still resting in his palm. For the first time since he had driven Bangchan away, guilt settled heavily in his chest. He remembered Bangchan's tired eyes, his silence, his refusal to defend himself. Perhaps silence had never meant guilt. Perhaps it had meant protection. Felix closed his fingers around the broken metal piece. In a quiet voice, barely louder than the wind, he whispered, "I should have listened." Felix stood alone on the riverside pier long after Hyunjin had walked back to the car. The broken half of the silver keychain rested in his hand, cold against his skin. For the first time since that painful night, he stopped asking whether Bangchan had betrayed him and began asking a far more difficult question. Had he betrayed Bangchan's trust first? The next morning, Felix made a decision. "I need to find him." Hyunjin smiled gently. "I was hoping you'd say that." They searched everywhere they could think of. They visited Bangchan's apartment, the cafe he often frequented, the riverside park where he liked to clear his thoughts, and even the old practice studio where the three of them had spent countless evenings chasing impossible dreams. At every place, they found only memories. Then, as they were about to leave the practice studio, the receptionist handed Felix a sealed envelope. "He asked me to give you this if you ever came looking." Felix recognized the handwriting immediately. With trembling fingers, he opened it. Inside was a single letter. "Felix, if you're reading this, it means you chose to search for me instead of searching for someone to blame. I'm sorry I stayed silent. I thought carrying the burden alone would keep both you and Hyunjin safe. I was wrong. My silence hurt the people I wanted to protect most. The photographs, the messages, and the lies were all meant to divide us. I couldn't explain without putting you in greater danger, but I should have trusted you with the truth instead of making that choice for you. Whatever happens next, never let fear convince you that trust is weakness." A small address was written at the bottom of the page. Felix and Hyunjin exchanged a glance before driving there immediately. The address led them to a quiet hill overlooking the city. Wildflowers swayed gently in the afternoon breeze. And the clouds had finally begun to part, allowing warm sunlight to spill across the landscape. Bangchan was sitting on a wooden bench, watching the city below. When he heard footsteps, he slowly turned around. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Then Felix walked forward until only a few steps separated them. "I'm sorry." His voice shook. "I judged you before I understood you." Bangchan lowered his eyes. "And I'm sorry I believed protecting you meant hiding everything from you." Silence that followed no longer felt painful. It felt honest. Hyunjin smiled with visible relief. "Spent days wishing the two of you would finally stop apologizing to empty rooms." A quiet laugh escaped all three of them. It was small, uncertain, but real. Bangchan explained everything he had hidden. The anonymous messages had come from someone trying to manipulate and intimidate the people closest to him. By staying silent, He believed he could prevent Felix and Hyunjin from becoming involved. Instead, his silence allowed fear and misunderstanding to grow, until it nearly destroyed the friendships he treasured most. The mysterious person responsible was eventually identified through security footage and digital evidence collected by the authorities after several reports were connected. The harassment ended, and the anonymous messages stopped as suddenly as they had begun. Life did not return to normal overnight. Trust rarely heals that quickly. There were awkward conversations, lingering doubts, and moments when old fears resurfaced. But instead of facing those moments alone, they faced them together. Weeks later, Felix stood in the apartment where everything had fallen apart. He placed the repaired silver keychain beside the original one on the table. "I had it fixed," he said with a smile. Bangchan picked it up carefully. "It still has a crack." Felix nodded. "So do we." He looked at Bangchan and then at Hyunjin. "But cracks don't mean something is beyond repair. Sometimes they remind us how much effort it took to put the pieces back together." The evening sunlight filled the apartment with a warm golden glow. The room that had once echoed with anger now carried the sound of quiet conversation and genuine laughter. Outside, another rain began to fall. This time, no one walked away. The three friends stood by the window together, watching the rain wash the city clean, knowing that trust was never about never making mistakes. It was about having the courage to tell the truth, to forgive, and to stay when leaving would have been easier. And as the storm passed into a clear, peaceful night, they realized that the strongest friendships were not the ones that had never been broken, but the ones that had chosen to heal.